We're gonna work the 3 beginner submissions from the mount position, okay? 3 submissions that all beginners should know from the mount position. Okay, so from the mount position here, first of all, what is the mount position? I'm past my partner's legs, I'm controlling their torso with my legs here, and I'm low on the ground here. Okay, so I wanna be low so that I can pin them to the ground and have a good balance. I have 4 points on the floor, my 2 hands, and my 2 legs. Okay, the first submission we're gonna go over is the Americana. Okay, this is a very basic submission that I usually show for everyone's first submission from here. So I have to go 2-on-1, control the arm, and my elbows are in tight. I use my body weight to pin my partner's arm on the ground just like this. When I pin the arm on the ground, I make sure that their arm is like an L. I want it 90 degrees or less. So I bring his arm down, I make sure that it's 90 degrees or less, and then I bring my elbow to the ear, okay? Then my other arm comes under the armpit and I grab my own wrist. When I grab my own wrist, I make sure my thumbs are working together as I grab my wrist and my partner's wrist. From here, I drive his elbow down towards his ribs, and at the same time, I'm gonna push his wrist behind him or behind the elbow towards my knee here. So I elevate the elbow, push the wrist, and then I also break my wrists down to have an extra rotational pressure. So I go down here, grab the wrist, go down, and finish the lock there, okay? When I can use this submission is when my partner has their arms like this, but separated. You see, it's very good opportunity for me to hit the Americana because there's not much that he can do to prevent me from using my body weight. So if he gives me a little resistance, if I use my body weight, it's gonna go down, okay? If he had his arms crossed here, I can't attack this arm, but I could attack that arm, right? So he can then give me a little bit of a hard time on one side. So a good time to hit it is when you notice the partner's arms are like this, right there, ready to grab. Okay, a few common mistakes people do on the Americana. One, when they pin the arm to the ground, they forget to drop this left elbow to the ground. And they try hitting the submission from here, which is very weird because I have no balance and I can't apply a pressure. I might be able to make him tap, but all he has to do is like bridge me and I'm gonna fall and I'm gonna lose my balance, okay? So when you go for the submission, this elbow has to go on the ground. Now I have a really strong balance. If he tries to bridge me, it's much harder because my elbow's in his face. Another common thing is when they apply, this is another common mistake. They apply the lock and the person's arm is in the air. Their arm's floating in the air. I have not as much pushing power and control of the arm when his arm is in the air. It's hard. I can get the tap, but it requires a lot more energy and they'll have a much higher escape rate. So I pin the arm to the ground, and as I apply the pressure, I always make sure that there's some part of his hand touching the ground the whole time. Another common mistake is they're 90 degrees or greater. If I'm trying to hit an Americana and their arm is like this, it's much harder to get the tap. And as you see, his hand naturally comes up. Now, if I make his arm less than 90 degrees, I'm gonna get the tap right away. I'm sure there's a few more common mistakes for that submission, but let's keep it at that. Make sure that your elbow's on the ground, that their wrist or hand is always touching the ground while you're applying the lock, and their arm is 90 degrees or less, okay? Another beginner submission is the cross choke. So from the mount position, I'm gonna go for the cross choke. I open the collar, my hand goes palm up, and I reach as deep as I can here. And I make sure when I do this that my forearm is snug against my partner's neck, okay? Then my second hand comes under and I make the same grip right here on the other side. Both of my forearms or wrists are snug against my partner's neck. And then when I finish, I bring my forehead to the ground, my elbows go to my ribs, and then I pull my elbows back and I squeeze. When I squeeze, I pull my elbows back to my ribs, and I'm gonna do a little wrist curl to finish the choke here at the same time, okay? When you can apply this choke is whenever they, your partner is giving you an opportunity. So their hands are maybe low, like they're trying to push your hips, then I have a good chance because his neck is exposed. I just have to make sure I have a good balance. My knees are pinched so that he doesn't push very well. And then I open, feed 1 and 2, and then I finish the choke here, okay? A couple of common mistakes when you go for this choke is my grips. If they're not deep enough, if I grab and my fists are around the collarbone or lower, it's never gonna choke. I can't choke here. You'll see people, they'll struggle, they'll try to open their elbows and choke, right? Maybe it's uncomfortable, but you're not gonna get the proper technique that you're looking for. So you have to make sure that your hands go really deep. I'm punching the ground. My thumb is well behind the ear, and I go on both sides, deep as I can. Another common mistake, as I kind of pointed to earlier, is that people try to open their elbows to finish. Okay, you're not gonna get the proper choking mechanics. I want my elbows glued to my ribs, and then I can choke. So elbows are in, and then choke. Okay, maybe the last common mistake is people forget to put their head on the ground. Okay, so when I do the choke, sometimes people, they try to finish from here. Okay, now maybe I can get the choke, but once again, it's very similar to the elbow on the ground for the Americana. If my head is not on the ground, I don't have any balance. So all he has to do is bridge me over and I'm gonna fall, okay? Or let go of the choke. So when I get my grips deep, I bring my elbows in, I bring my forehead to the ground, now I finish the choke, okay? One more very important submission for a beginner is the arm bar, all right? So for the arm bar, I will make sure I get my partner's arm across their body. Okay, a great time to hit this submission is when you're threatening the choke. They want to grab your arm to defend. So then I take the elbow, I use my body, and I pin the arm down to the ground. Now I'm going to transfer my body into the S-mount position. I climb my knee above the head, and this foot tucks but under the armpit on the far side. Okay, then I get on my toes here so that I can put my weight on my partner. I hug the arm nice and tight to my body. I sit on them, step over the head, and then I come down and go for the arm bar here. Squeezing my knees really tight. My heels come to my butt. So I have pressure down, in, and also in heels to butt, knees together, and down towards the mat. And when I finish, I control the wrist, making sure the thumb is facing up, and I pull down to get the tap on the elbow. Okay, so like I said, great time to hit that arm bar is when they're defending the choke. I have the arm here, I push it across and enter to the S-mount position. All right, a couple of common mistakes. When people go to the S-mount, they have a hard time passing this leg over the head. And the reason is because they don't transfer their weight well. So what people will do in order to compensate for that is they'll lay down and then pass the leg over the head. And as you can see, my partner already wants to sit up, and I'm not gonna have a good chance, a good opportunity to pass my leg over the head. So this weight transfer, when I get here, I have to transfer my weight, and now I can pass my leg over the head, no problem. So sometimes when I teach this, I tell people to do the can-can. Dun, 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 dun. So you should be able to pass your leg over the head, no problem, and then sit down for the arm bar. Almost always are you gonna pass your leg over the head and then lay down for the arm bar. Then when you get here, a couple of common mistakes is people forget to squeeze their knees, and they're pulling and they're pulling and they're pulling, and the person is not tapping because their knees are wide open, and that takes away a lot of the pressure. Now if I just start squeezing my knees together, he taps, okay? Another common mistake is people sit down with their butt too far away. I need my hips glued to the armpit. My hips are too far away. I try to finish, he's not gonna tap. So if you find yourself in that position, make sure you scoot your hips in, pinch your knees, And now I have my knees pinched, my hips are glued to the armpit. Now I'm ready to complete the armbar. That's it. 3 submissions.